What's up guys, Mark here at Lone University. Welcome to lesson 98. In this lesson we'll be focusing on how to emulate an upright bass tone. Yes, that old school stand-up bass sound that you can't deny, and I absolutely love the sound of it and all the old school jazz and swing recordings. And the stigma surrounding that between the electric bass and the upright bass is that you can't really get that sound on electric bass. I'm going to partially agree with that, but I'm also here to prove that wrong in a lot of ways. And the idea for this lesson sort of stemmed from my own experiences where I encountered a challenge to really make this happen. And as I've said in some other videos, I've been in, I did 4 years of jazz ensemble at my university and college. And, at the time I had probably one of the most modern electric basses you could have, most metal, rock metal kind of bass. I had a 7-string Conklin GT Bill Dickens 7-string model, signature model. With stainless steel strings, and I had single coil Bartolinis. They're really clanky, and I had an Ampeg BA115 amp. No pedals or nothing, it was just bass to amp. And we were playing all these old school swing songs, and the director was just like, man, we gotta lighten that tone up. It's just too harsh for this. And I was like, yeah, man, I know, this is all I got. So I kind of had to just put my own unique spin on it and create an upright tone just based on EQ, approach, and just how I handled the instrument. I'm here to kind of tell you what I did. And the point of this is to teach you how to pull that tone out of your back pocket at any time when you need it, no matter what bass or rig you have. And it's definitely possible, and you can get very close. And in a mixed setting, it's going to sound very authentic. You may be in a jazz ensemble or a band or a theater pit orchestra, you never know, and they pull out a song that just kind of has that old school sound, and you may want that upright tone. And one of the best traits of a versatile bass player is being able to change up the tone all with one bass, okay? So I'm going to use a song I had in my library called Hey Burner. It's by Count Basie, one of my favorite kind of old school jazz artists. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from that, and we'll go back and kind of show you how I'm going to approach this. So let's listen to this now. This is Hey Burner. Here's just the intro. So that's the song Hey Burner once again, kind of an old school swing type of song. Now, the tone you heard from that bass, you would look at this thing and be like, no way, man. And I'm going to show you how I can get fairly close. And when the band especially gets louder in that kind of loud section, it's going to sound pretty close, or sort of its own version, but it's going to be much more appropriate. And to a listener, that's all you need to do. So I'm going to break this down to 3 things, just 3 simple things, how to just transform the sound of this bass, okay? We're going to talk about EQ, touch, and location of the notes on the neck. EQ, touch, and location of the notes on the neck, very important. So now I have another version of this song where I've sort of cut out the low end. I've just put like a filter on it to take all the low end frequency out of it so I can kind of play along to it and it sound as accurate as possible, okay? So, okay, normal bass tone, let's hear how this sounds. how this sort of modern Warwick thumb bass, it just does not sound anything like it. It's got this real honky sound. But that tone works for the music I play. Rock and metal, you know, it cuts through, has a bite to it, a strong attack, a strong mid-range focus. So that works for me. Now, I'm going to try to transform this and get it really close to that authentic sound. So we talked about EQ first. So your bass may not have an onboard EQ. I have bass, mid, and treble controls, a pickup selector for the neck and the bridge. A lot of basses have this now, but if you don't, you know, you can just use a preamp, which is just a little preamp pedal or a rack preamp, or EQ on your amp can achieve this too. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. You just want to have a 4-band EQ available, basically. I guess this is only 3-band what I'm using now. So first thing I'm going to do is dime my bass knob. Dime, just crank it all the way up. So my bass knob is here. That goes all the way up first. And what that does, not only does it make it more full and round and bassy, but it gives me a lot more gain and a much hotter signal to where I can play quieter and still have this big, like, hot signal sound. And what I mean by that, it sort of imitates that big, boomy, very delicate sound. I sound like an idiot trying to describe this, but when you have a really hot signal, every little nuance you make on the string sounds very amplified. And if you listen to an upright bass tone, it sounds very organic. You can hear the finger movements and exactly the way the guy plays the string and exactly the way the string vibrates and resonates. And that's the kind of organic sound you want to create that you don't quite get with this active, very electronic setup, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is turn my treble. I'm going to start all the way down, but I'm going to crank it back up just to have some kind of scrape finger noise on the, you know, when I let go of the string. Very subtle. So I'll go all the way down to 0 and maybe up to about 10-15%. Now the mid-range, as we've talked about in a lot of these EQ lessons, that's where the throatiness, the voice of the note is in. And I don't want too much of that, because if you listen to the upright tone, it's real subdued. You don't hear a lot of fundamental pitch. You kind of feel it. You can kind of hear the pitch in there, but it doesn't come right away. And Warwick thumb basses, or any of these modern electric basses, are like, bah, like right when you play it. So you kind of want to subdue that. So I'm going to take some of the mids away. I'm going to probably put those a little below half, okay? Now, another part of the EQ, as we've talked about in a lot of these pickup videos, is the pickups. I guess I said that first. So again, this being one of the most modern type of models out there for electric bass, I have 2 bridge pickups. Technically, that's the design. There's no neck pickup. I have this big space here. So if you have like a precision bass, you're going to have an easier time with this than even I would. So just goes to show you how this can be done. So even though this is technically a neck pickup, it's really close to the bridge. That's why a Warwick thumb bass has that really nasally tone. So I'm going to completely turn this pickup off so I can get far enough away from that honky bridge sound. And you want more of that neck tone. So all the way to the neck pickup, turn this pickup off. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is hear how that sounds. It's kind of getting there. See how that bridge pickup sounds. Yep, you can kind of hear the difference that makes alone. So if you have a pickup selector, turn the bridge off and only do the neck pickup. So I've dimed my bass knob. Mid is a little bit below 50%. Treble is maybe 15-20% right there. So that's EQ. That's as good as we're going to get with what we have here. Now we're going to talk about the touch. Now if you watch an upright player play his bass, you're going to notice that relative to where an electric bass player plays, that's tough to say, way down here by the bridge, an upright bassist doesn't play anywhere near this. There's like that whole bottom part of the bass not being touched. He's plucking over the neck. And upright bass players play actually over the neck. So I'm going to recreate that same approach. I'm going to play my bass like up here, like nowhere near the pickups. And the reason for that is that's where you get that really kind of wah sound that you get when you pluck a string, because the least amount of string tension on a bass is right in the middle. You know, it's obviously really tough to bend a string over here. You can kind of see that I can't do it. I can't do it down here, but I can bend a string a lot here. There's less tension here. So when you pluck the string, it's going to vibrate just a lot more aggressively. And that's the kind of a big part of the characteristic of the tone you want. Now, if your action is low like mine, you're going to get a lot of buzz when you do that. But honestly, when you turn the treble all the way up, you don't really hear that buzz in a shrill way. It's kind of a nice, organic, I'm getting crazy trying to describe this stuff, but you get what I'm saying. You can kind of hear that fret buzz, but it doesn't sound abrasive. It kind of has an organic sound to it. So I'm going to pluck up here, and I'm never really going to go past here. I'm going to stay kind of up here. Okay, now the last thing I want to talk about is really one of the most important things. Let me reset my EQ first the way I had it before. Very easy to come back, only a few knobs to change. Now, fundamentally on bass, you do know that playing notes down here sound totally different than playing those same notes up here. And I've always gone by that rule. If I want to achieve a certain sound for my bass lines, in any context, I can simply play up here or I can play them down here. It sounds much more shrill when I play them closer to the nut, closer to the headstock, versus down here, or even up here. The tone is totally different. The exact same note, pitch, and octave is different around the bass. So you want to get your notes you're fretting kind of in this next range of the neck, you know, no lower than fret 5 is what I would tell you. Between frets 5 and 12 is what you want to aim for. Because any notes up here, they start to sound real... That doesn't sound like an upright bass. This sounds a lot more like one. More full. So, quick review and then we'll put it in context. Dime the bass knob all the way up. Mids, I put mine a little below half, just to make sure it has some fundamental pitch, but not too much. Treble, maybe go all the way down, then back up to maybe 15%. Very rough estimate. Turn the bridge pickup off. Okay, now I'm going to play up here. So we talked about touch. You want to play up here. And I kind of want to pluck in such a way that increases the surface area of my finger and I'll let go of the string. You don't want to pluck on the very tip. You don't want that precise attack. You kind of want this real just like you're rubbing the string almost. And I kind of play it more like an upright player would. I don't claim to have correct upright technique. I've never really played one. But I'm just going to use the medius part of my finger. I'm going to pluck up here. Combined with moving my notes up here, and suddenly I have a much more upright sounding tone, okay? Totally different sounding thing. Let's put that in context and hear how it sounds. Here we go. So there you have it. Very authentic sounding upright tone on this modern electric bass. I didn't add any pedals or anything to it, just changed my EQ, changed my touch, my plucking patterns, and changed the location of my notes. And in about 3 seconds, okay, it's longer than 3, but you get the idea. It's pretty quick. Go right back to that nice... Go back to my original tone. So that goes to show you that you can get really close in the ballpark of that tone just with some change in EQ, but I think even more than the EQ, it's your touch and where your notes are played. Even if I didn't change the EQ and change my touch and the location of my notes, it already just changed as much from this tone. Alright, so have fun with this. Go try to experiment with this on your own and find some old school songs and see if you can recreate the tone. Emulating tones is one of the funnest challenges of playing bass, and I really like doing it from time to time. It's a cool experiment and see what you can come up with. Have fun, and we'll see you next time.